You can be fit without being functional. And the reality is, if you're not moving functionally, you're putting a low ceiling on your potential performance and increasing your risk of experiencing persistent pain or otherwise preventable injury. In today's video, I'm going to show you exactly why we need to prioritize moving functionally first and then worry about performance and fitness qualities second. And I'm also going to show you how to balance training for fitness and function at the same time so that you can move healthier and get the most out of your performance. Hi guys, welcome back to Stout Sport Performance. I'm Austin Stout, and in today's video, we're going to separate the concepts of being fit from being functional. We all know people that are fit, and we just assume that they're functional athletes or functional people. Let's take the example of a person who's able to run a 10K under 40 minutes. We would almost all consider that person a relatively fit person, but in my opinion, that has nothing to do with their functional ability to move well. And that's what we really mean when we talk about function. We're saying, can the person move well and perform the daily activities that they have to perform, as well as their recreational and sporting activities, with a high movement quality? It could very well be that we have a person that can run a 10K in an hour that has more functional, high quality running mechanics and movement than a person who's capable of running a 10K in 40 minutes. The person who can run it in 40 minutes is certainly fitter. They have a higher performance capability at this point, but they're not as functional when we talk about the running quality that they have as the person who can run that in an hour. And what we really want, if we want to reach our ultimate performance capability, we also want to make sure that we avoid persistent pain and otherwise avoidable injury. We have to be functional first and high quality movers first, and then worry about developing our fitness and performance second. That's the biggest takeaway you can take from this video. Think movement quality first, think function first, then think fitness and performance second. You're going to get the most out of that and avoid injury out of that if you follow that framework. So to help illustrate this idea of being functional first and then fit second, we're going to use this idea of a car. We're going to use a car metaphor here. And what I want you to do is think about if we were to take the engine of a race car and we were to put that in the body of your dad's beat up Toyota RAV4 from the year 2000. We can already see this is a bad idea. We have a really high performance engine. It's super powerful. It's very strong. It's very efficient. It's capable of doing a lot. But because it's in the body of a beat up car with some flat tires, we're not going to get maximum performance out of that engine. The reality is, that engine's probably too strong for the car itself, and we're probably going to do damage to that car. And if we take this example and we think about the body, not that much actually changes. And to illustrate that point, I want to walk you through two examples. The first one, I've been guilty of this before. Early in my training career, I did a lot of boot camp style classes, and I programmed way too many burpees for clients without realizing some of the damage that I was probably doing to these people by programming that in there. But you learn from your mistakes. And if you're watching this video and you're in a boot camp class, show that to your trainer because they shouldn't be doing this. The burpee, a dysfunctional boot camp classic. This is the classic example of thinking about training for fitness without training for function. I've seen a ton of people in parks fit enough to perform 10 burpees in a row, 20 burpees in a row, burpees performed in interval style circuits, high intensity interval training circuits with burpees involved. But almost none of these people can perform one singular burpee with high function or high quality. Now, whether a burpee is really an exercise that we need to include in our training at all, probably a conversation for a different day. I tend to stay away from it now. But what I will say is, if we're not capable of jumping from that push-up position to a position with straight feet on the ground before we perform that vertical jump, or to be able to jump back into the push-up position while maintaining a neutral pelvic position and avoiding any sort of lumbar extension or flexion, then we're not functionally capable of training the burpee with high quality. So what happens is people train, they get fitter, they're able to perform more burpees, but they're all dysfunctional burpees. We do that long enough, not only are we capping our potential performance within that movement pattern, but we're also encouraging potential injury and persistent pain to occur from programming that within our training. Now, the second example that we have here is the last 100 meters of a marathon, which I call an inspiring nightmare. The reason that is because almost all of these people that reach that point of a marathon are gonna finish. And it really is inspiring. If you've ever been in one of these marathons, that last 100 meters, if you're there at about hour 4 to hour 6, inevitably you're gonna see people that probably should have stopped running the event 5 to 10 kilometers earlier, but because of their training and because they've been so dedicated to it, they fight through it and quite literally limp across the finish line. And while that's great to see, it's inspiring to see people that didn't give up, the reality is they're doing a lot of damage to their body because they simply weren't functionally capable to perform such an intense activity with such a high load at one time well. And so this is a great example. These people have trained for the marathon. They're fit enough to complete the marathon. They have the aerobic capacity to be able to do it. They have the muscular endurance to be able to do it. But the quality of the running simply wasn't good enough to sustain and tolerate such high levels of fitness for that duration of time. So if you think back to the car example, that's where the engine has kind of outrun the body of the car. So how do we avoid this? What's the better way? How do we avoid this dysfunctional boot camp classic and this terrible last 100 meters of a marathon for so many people? And the reality is we have to prioritize movement first in our training. Now, this doesn't mean that at no point do we start thinking about performance qualities and fitness qualities, but it does mean that before we start trying to obtain those performance qualities, we know that the movement patterns we're training have a high enough quality that we're really training functional performance and not dysfunctional performance. So this comes directly from the Stout Sport Performance training system. We focus on fundamental movement patterns first. So this is our squatting, hinging, lunging, pushing and pulling in the horizontal and vertical direction. And then I actually also include bilateral and unilateral jumps and running mechanics within that set of fundamental movement patterns. And what we do with our clients is we won't start thinking about training these performance qualities where we're working to get stronger, we're working to build muscular endurance, we're building aerobic and anaerobic capacity. We won't even approach doing that within certain movement patterns until we can perform high quality repetitions without fatigue. And that's the key word, performing high quality repetitions of fundamental movement patterns without fatigue well. And once we can do that, then we can start worrying about training performance qualities, thinking about certain goals that clients may have and helping them reach those goals. Now above that, we have what I call competitive performance, and that's where we're really trying to train for absolute peak performance. And the reason that's here at the top is because we won't try to approach training for competition until all of our fundamental movement patterns have a high quality and until we have a certain baseline of performance qualities. Think about basic programs, GPP style programs that get you to a certain level of physical preparedness to be able to start training for competition. But that's a little bit beyond the realm of this video. This is what we want to take away. Once we have fundamental quality within these basic movement patterns and we have function in these movement patterns, then we can start thinking about training for these performance qualities. And the result of that is we still have the fitness to be able to perform a lot of repetitions of burpees, but that same burpee is now a functional burpee because we've trained quality movement first, and then we've worked to build our capacity for higher levels of fitness and performance within that said movement pattern. Same thing for the running. If we build our ability to run well without fatigue, then over time we can build our ability to run functionally under fatigue. And that comes in really important when, say, you're in the last 100 meters of a marathon. So if we go back to this car example to wrap things up, we now have the engine from a race car, but we've built the body of a race car so we can make sure we get the most and we can use that engine to its fullest without worrying about breaking the car down. So that's why fitness and function are not the same thing. And again, that big takeaway from this video is we gotta be functional first, and we gotta train for function first through quality movement, and then we can worry about training for fitness and performance thereafter. Thank you guys so much for watching, and be sure to subscribe for more.